In Brazil, former President Jair Bolsonaro has been sentenced to 27 years in jail for attempting a coup to remain in office. On Thursday, a majority of the Brazilian Supreme Court convicted him of plotting to claw back power after his defeat in elections in 2022. The far-right leader was found guilty by 4 members of a 5-judge panel. Bolsonaro did not attend the verdict hearings and says the trial was politically motivated. His lawyers say they plan to appeal the verdict. Let's cross now to Rio de Janeiro and speak to journalist Júlia Carneiro. Júlia, great to have you on. Just explain to us, please, how historic this verdict is today.
It's hugely important. It's a momentous moment for Brazil, Jared. It was followed with very closely by Brazilians. It's the first time in Brazilian history that a former president faces trial for an attempted coup and is now convicted, not only the president, but also the 7 other defendants in this case, including 3 former generals having also faced trial and being now found guilty for taking part in a coup attempt. And this, of course, if you'll remember, Brazil is a young democracy. It came out of a 20-year-long dictatorship, military dictatorship, just in 1985. So this is very important, and the court wanted to make a statement about that.
Given the huge interest that you've described in this trial, how much has it polarised the country?
Well, polarization is a fact in Brazil for the past 10, 15 years between the left and the right. This was intensified when Bolsonaro was elected in 2018. He's a very divisive figure, a figure that has surged in the political scene, taking the far right into power in 2018. But during his government, he became known for spreading discredit about the electoral system in Brazil and sort of paving the way. People were all the time questioning what would he do if he lost his re-election bid. And he did lose his re-election. And all this time he had been spreading misinformation, really, about Brazil's electoral system. And on January 8, 2023, Brazil saw the riots in Brasília, similar to the January 6 riots in the Capitol in Washington in the United States, with thousands of Bolsonaro supporters storming in the Capitol, Brasília, into the presidential palace, into the Supreme Court building. And that was a moment that became the mark of this coup attempt that the justices have now convicted.
Yeah, Bolsonaro is a very divisive figure, as you say. I'd like to look ahead to the elections next year in Brazil. Is Bolsonaro going to continue to be a political force in the country, or is that over for him now, given his conviction?
It's difficult to say at this stage because he still is the major voice in Brazil's right and the far right. He still has, he mobilizes tens of thousands of supporters. Just on the weekend, there were, the streets were packed with Bolsonaro supporters saying that this trial was a fraud, saying that he needed to have an amnesty. So these people are certainly not going to be satisfied with this result and are still voting on his side. And whoever he appoints as his successor for the 2016 election, his blessing is sure to have an influence on whomever goes forward and how the election plays out in the coming year.
Now, Júlia, there's been strong criticism to this verdict on Bolsonaro from the United States. Brazil's government has then hit back, saying that Brazil's democracy is not going to be intimidated. Just explain to us why this backlash has come from Washington.
Well, President Donald Trump is a strong ally of Jair Bolsonaro. They belong to this big right-wing movement that we've seen spread around the world. And as this movement to prosecute Bolsonaro intensified in Brazil, Donald Trump started to take a stance, and he recently called the trial a witch hunt. He's the leading figure in this trial, the justice leading the proceedings, Alexandre de Moraes, he's considered an enemy by Bolsonaro, his supporters, and his allies, and Trump as well. He plays a strong role in cracking down on misinformation in Brazil, in enforcing big techs like X to take down fake news, and well, Donald Trump doesn't like that, and he slapped 50% tariffs on Brazilian goods, and this is really hurting the economy. So now Brazilians are afraid that more sanctions could come after this trial.
We have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Júlia Carneiro in Rio de Janeiro. Gustavo Ribeiro is editor-in-chief of the Brazilian Report in Brasilia. Good to have you with us. This is historic. Just talk us through the verdict, if you could, and how the majority of judges came to their decision.
Thanks for having me. Yes, this is unprecedented. Brazil has had a history of coups and attempted coups, but this is the first time that we're going to see accountability. And justices pointed to a wealth of evidence showing that Bolsonaro quarterbacked a conspiracy that tried to undermine trust in the electoral system, plotted to assassinate our current president Lula, and tried to stage voter suppression operations. So yes, there was a lot of evidence against Bolsonaro and 7 of his co-conspirators.
This is a really damning verdict. How do Brazilians view this?
Well, this has gone pretty much across party lines. Those who believe that this is a political trial are pretty much 35 to 40% of the population, which coincides with the electorate that declares to be Bolsonarista. However, 50% of the Brazilian electorate says that they believe that Bolsonaro should be convicted. They think this is a fair trial. So Bolsonaro has been losing popularity, and now that he is removed from the political chessboard, that tends to happen even more.
And Bolsonaro has been sentenced to 27 years in prison. What happens to him now? Does he go straight to jail?
Well, now justices, first and foremost, they have to publish the decision in the Supreme Court annals. Then his lawyers can file some appeals. However, because of the scoreboard, the avenues for appeal are very narrowed. So Bolsonaro is out of the question that Bolsonaro changes the outcome of this trial. He can try to push the start of his sentencing further. And now justices will have to decide whether he will at least start to his sentence in prison, if he will remain under house arrest as he is right now, or if he will be transferred to a federal police facility. It is important to remember that one of the factors that Bolsonaro did not get in the higher echelon of the possible sentence is because he's already 70 years old, so probably he will not have to go to prison.
Very interesting. Now, let's talk about some of the wider reactions. Donald Trump says he's very unhappy with the verdict. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has just tweeted that the US will respond accordingly to what he says is a witch hunt. What does this verdict mean for US-Brazil relations?
Well, relations are already in a 200-year low. The Brazilian government was already expecting that after this conviction was confirmed that some reaction would come from Washington, especially in the form of targeted sanctions against the justices who voted against Bolsonaro. And it's interesting that Donald Trump compared Bolsonaro's trial to saying that, well, they tried to do this with me in the US. And one of the justices said that Brazil should not go for amnesty because this will not pacify the country. And used Trump as an example, saying that they pardoned Trump for his attempted coup, but that has not solved the issue of political violence in the U.S., citing Charlie Kirk's assassination yesterday.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for that, Gustavo. That was Gustavo Ribeiro in Brasilia, the editor-in-chief of the Brazilian Report.
Thank you.